Today, we are talking about something called cognitive load theory. Now, I know it sounds a little academic, right? But stick with me here because this is basically the cheat code for your brain, how to learn better, teach better, and just get information across without overwhelming people. Okay, let me ask you something. Think back. Have you ever been in a lecture or a meeting and you're trying so hard to follow along, but your brain just kind of gives up? Yeah, we've all been there. And it turns out it's probably not your fault. You know exactly what I'm talking about. The slide in front of you is a giant wall of text. The person talking is going on some weird tangent. And, of course, the person sitting next to you is watching a cat video. All of that stuff piles up, and suddenly trying to learn anything feels totally impossible. Well, that feeling, that specific "my brain is full" sensation, actually has a name. Psychologists call it cognitive load. And understanding this one idea is the key to fixing the whole problem. So, what is it, really? Cognitive load theory is basically a user manual for our brains. It was developed by an educational psychologist named John Sweller, and it's all built around one simple, powerful idea. The part of our brain that actively thinks about new stuff, our working memory, is incredibly limited. To really get this, you have to picture how your brain takes in new information. Think of it like a factory. But there's this one tiny, super cramped doorway right in the middle of the assembly line. That's the bottleneck. Here's how it works. First, your sensory memory is like a bouncer, taking in everything you see and hear and filtering out most of the noise. The important stuff gets sent to your working memory. That's the conscious part, where you're actively thinking. Then, if everything goes right, that info gets filed away neatly into your long-term memory as organized concepts called schemas. Now, that middle step, working memory, that's the hero of our story, but it's also the weakest link. It's powerful for sure, but it's so limited. So, take a guess. How many new pieces of information do you think you can juggle at one time? 10? 7? Nope, it's 4. That's it. Just 4. Your brain can only actively process about 4 new chunks of info at once. Anything more than that, and you get an error message. The system overloads. Learning just stops. That's the bottleneck. So, to get smart about this, the theory breaks down all that mental effort into 3 different types. And once you know these, you'll see exactly what went wrong in that terrible lecture we talked about. Okay, first up is intrinsic load. This is just how difficult the subject is. Learning to count to 10 is low intrinsic load. Learning quantum physics, that's a high intrinsic load. Simple enough. Next is extraneous load. Now, this is the bad guy. This is all the junk that gets in the way. The horrible slide design, the speaker who won't stop rambling, all the distractions. It's effort that has nothing to do with learning. And finally, there's germane load. This is the good stuff. This is the productive mental effort your brain uses to actually build understanding and connect new ideas to what you already know. So here's the secret. You can't really change how hard a topic is. That's the intrinsic load. But you have complete control over the extraneous load. The entire game is to slash and burn all that unnecessary mental clutter. Get rid of it. That frees up your brain's very limited power for what actually matters, the real learning. All right, so that's the problem. But what's the solution? How do we actually start designing things, lessons, presentations, you name it, that work with our brains instead of fighting against them? Well, luckily, the research gives us some really clear strategies. One of the most powerful ones is called the modality effect. It means pairing a visual with spoken words, kind of like we're doing right now. When you see an image and hear me explaining it, you're using 2 different channels into your brain, your eyes and your ears. This actually spreads the load out, making it way easier to process than if you were just trying to read a bunch of text describing a picture. And here's a perfect classic example. On the left, you've got what's called the split attention effect. The picture is over here, the labels are way over there. Your brain has to waste precious energy just going back and forth, matching things up. It's exhausting. Now look at the right. The design is integrated. The labels are right on the thing they're describing. It's clean, it's obvious, and it kills that useless extraneous load. All your brain power can go straight to understanding the machine itself. So why does any of this really matter? Because getting a handle on cognitive load theory isn't just some neat trivia. In the world we live in today, it is a legitimate superpower.
I mean, think about it. We are drowning in information. And on top of that, we have the Google effect. Our brains know we can just look something up, so we don't bother to actually remember it. We offload it. And that's fine for trivia, but it stops us from building real deep knowledge. By intentionally managing cognitive load, you can actually cut through all that noise and truly learn things. At the end of the day, this is all about working with our own biology. John Sweller, the guy who started it all, said our minds are a natural information processing system. It has rules, it has limits, and trying to fight those limits is a losing battle. The smartest thing we can do is work with them. So there you have it. You now know about the fundamental bottleneck in your brain, and more importantly, how to get around it. It doesn't matter if you're a student, a teacher, a boss, or just someone who wants to learn more effectively. The rules are the same. Cut the clutter, focus on what's essential. You've got the cheat code. The only question now is, how are you going to use it?
So I just did a few videos on homework and parents and teachers struggling, learners not wanting to do the homework. And I thought I'd do a longer version of what I think should be important for everybody involved when it comes to homework. First of all, there's a trend worldwide right now that homework is not given. And it works for some countries and some regions, but it doesn't work for all. And the reason for that is that it's difficult for some of us as learners to get the work into our heads if we don't practice it at home. If you struggle with algebra, you're not going to just do one or two, let's say, drawings of a parabola or solving of an equation, and then you're fine. You have to do 100. You have to do them in degrees of difficulty. You will need to ask your teacher to help you. You might have to go online. You might have to ask your brighter friend to help you. So then homework is important, because tomorrow we're not going to look at the parabola anymore, are we? You're going to move on to the hyperbole, or hyperbole rather. Right? I was a maths teacher for 20 years, and then I swapped to English, and now I've swapped from hyperbole to hyperbole. It's spelled the same, not the same thing. But the point is, you cannot get away by not doing homework if you're tackling those difficult subjects. Think of accounting. My principal is an accounting teacher, and she's always up in arms about the fact that the kids don't practice. There are so many different situations in accounting. Now, I'll be honest with you, full disclosure, I had accounting until matric, and I didn't do great. I got 60 something, and I think my hands are sweaty now, because I couldn't get my balance sheet to balance ever. So I feel your pain, guys. But my point is simple. If you're going to want to be a successful student who wants that bursary, who wants to get that distinction, you're going to have to do homework. And you can't wait for your parents to tell you to do it, guys. If you're going to be a successful learner and you're 16 or 17, don't you think it's time now that you become responsible and do it on your own without someone telling you? I mean, we are dealing with a really bright bunch of kids in this generation. I will not let myself be convinced, and you cannot convince me that our teenagers of today are idiots. They are not. You are bright as hell. You know what is the right thing to do. You just choose not to. And it's often because there are no consequences. And guys, this is not going to help you in life. We do not have the energy as teachers and as parents to constantly have to check on you and to now have to fight with you about something stupid like homework. Go and sit on your backside, open those books, get it done. It's like washing the dishes. If you let it stand overnight, it rots and it takes twice as long to clean if you don't do it. If you wash the dishes right away after dinner, then it's done and it dries by itself and you don't have that pain. Please use that analogy in the future. I'll give you another one. When it comes to cleaning your room, why would you want to leave your clothes on the floor? Just get into the habit of hanging them up or putting them in the hamper. Put it in the basket. Why should someone tell you? You know that it's going to become a problem if you're in a relationship. Now, I'm not great at relationships and I don't have children, but I can tell you from the little bit of experience that I do have that relationships can end because people get so gutful, and that in English means sick and tired of bad habits of partners. Leaving that cap off. It's a deal breaker, and we are triggered by it. Parents are triggered by their kids leaving wet towels on the bathroom floor. Unacceptable. Even if you go and visit a hotel one day, guys, we don't leave wet towels on the floor. We don't leave the dishes unwashed overnight. You do not leave your homework undone if you want to be successful. If you want to be an average student, and none of us do, but if you are insisting, and I'm being sarcastic, on being average, then it's fine. But please don't complain then if you get the low marks. Please then don't become the learner that now has an entitlement, sense of entitlement, and you say it's the teacher's fault, or it's my parents' fault, or it's the weather, or it's my whatever reason you're thinking of. We are done with lying. We cannot in our society, in our modern society, boys and girls, we have to be honest. You have to do the homework. When it comes to doing schoolwork, people have different opinions. They often say, oh, but school is redundant and it's not applicable and the syllabus is behind and there's nothing that we can now learn from this. Why are we doing Delphi in IT if everything is now, a different language of coding? Python or whatever. I don't know. I'm not a programmer. But you might understand my example is why are we learning idioms like beat around the bush? There's no bush and there's no beating. What are you talking about, sir? Guys and girls, it's about vocabulary. It's about general knowledge. I'm reading a book now. Let me show it to you. It's called Poverty Proof. And it is an excellent read. It's by Douglas Kruger. And he was the author of How to Make Your First Million. Douglas Kruger, Poverty Proof. 50 Ways to Train Your Brain for Wealth. It's a thin little book and it's a quick read, but it's powerful. And in this book, he says, why are people, when it comes to wealth and poverty as topics, talking in two different conversations? He says, inevitably, when you read up about poverty, bear with me because this is a long story. If you talk about poverty, the causes are things like climate change and inequality and racism and lack of opportunities. But when you go to wealth creation and you talk about creating wealth, then those topics are not mentioned. He says it doesn't make sense. The opposite of that should be the solution. So in other words, equality for everyone should create wealth. Unfortunately, it doesn't. Socialism doesn't work. His words, not mine. He says, if you think about, I'll edit this out if I now waste time. But he says, tried and tested studies and literature about genuine escape from poverty and about genuine wealth creation do not focus on things that are inflicted upon people. Instead, they do something very different. They all focus on things within people. They focus on the individual, and in particular, they focus on developing excellent qualities within the individual. Solving poverty turns out to be a matter of raising more excellent humans. More excellent human beings who are taught certain values traits, behaviors, and skills of thinking. For example, did you know that faithfully maintaining a family, as opposed to getting divorced or raising children as a single parent, is one of the most important factors in reducing poverty? That's never spoken about. The fact that the parent is single is never spoken about as a cause for poverty. Why not? In the same way, where we cannot blame the weather for having an uncomfortable day, we cannot blame laziness and a lack of hard work on other people. It's your homework that you have to do. It's not my homework. I did my homework. Your parents did most of their homework, right, parents? Yes? Yeah. So please, don't blame anybody else about your problems. When you get to be an adult and you become a professional or a person working in a company or a business owner, you will not be able to give excuses. I love this book. Give it a read. I'm not getting any money for this. I'm just enjoying reading it, and it's helping me to prove a point. I'll give you another example. He says, your personal work ethic is the single greatest determinant of whether or not you will become upwardly mobile. Naturally, the more smart techniques you learn and add to your hard work, the faster you will amplify its effectiveness. Welfare programs substantially reduce work ethic by effectively paying people not to work. Socialism and communism obliterate work ethic by removing incentive. Why would you want to work if you don't have to? This is why society struggles. This is why socialism is not going to work. And this is why Section 21C schools are not getting their school fees. Because you don't have to pay if you don't want to. Or you have to, but you don't have to. Because you could rather pay your Netflix and your smartphone and get a new Apple 17 or whatever than pay for the teacher who's being hired by the school governing body. Parents, I don't have a soapbox. But if I had one, I would be standing on it a lot these days. Is it because I'm older? I think so. But please, it's just one of those things where it's like people have lost their minds when it comes to common sense. Why can't we just do the right thing? And I would like to see, as a result of my work and you listening to me and talking to other people, that we bring back values of hard work. And then when you're done working hard, then you relax and you play hard. Work hard, play hard. But we have a society filled with people, and our youngsters especially, who are caught in a passive, pathetic, non-working, non-doing anything, depressed situation. And I can't stand it. It's not normal. It's not natural. Snap out of it, guys. All of you. Parents, teachers, and kids. We have to wake up. Life is moving on with or without you. If you think about history, people did not have it easy. You couldn't afford to sit on your backside and do nothing. You wouldn't survive the winter. It's time that us as adults and as young adults start taking responsibility. And it doesn't mean life has to become so serious that you don't have any fun. In fact, ask anyone who's really successful. They will tell you they have more fun than anything. They have extraordinary types of fun. They have huge fun and expensive fun because they've worked for it. They've got the money. They need to go somewhere. They can afford it. They need to get on a plane and travel to a different country and go see China or whatever country you prefer to go to, then you can. But we are stuck with a bunch of people who have this inertia, who sit and who are procrastinating and who are not paying their dues and who are not doing their part. And I think things have to change.
Think about the last time you ate a meal and immediately washed your plate. It takes seconds. Because the food hasn't dried, the soap foams easily, and you're finished before the task even registers as effort. But if you leave that plate in the sink overnight, it starts to attract company. A sticky pan, a few forks, another bowl. By the next evening, you aren't just washing a plate, you're tackling a hardened mountain of dishes that requires boiling water and 20 minutes of scrubbing. Academic work follows this exact same trajectory. When you delay a straightforward assignment, the cognitive energy required to complete it later doesn't stay static, it multiplies. Delaying a task doesn't actually save you any energy. It simply schedules a heavier, more complex burden for your future self. From the outside, a student avoiding a massive pile of work looks lazy. In reality, procrastination is an emotional survival strategy. When a task feels too large or difficult, your brain attempts to avoid the negative feelings associated with it by switching to something easier or more pleasant. Your brain operates within a specific capacity for emotional regulation. If your workload stays below this threshold, you remain productive. But when work spikes, the threshold is breached. You enter a zero state, cognitive overwhelm, where your brain panics and shuts down to protect itself. To get moving again, you can't rely on motivation or willpower. You have to use a system that bypasses this emotional overwhelm entirely. Most students wait to feel motivated before they start, but the science of habit formation shows that motivation follows progress, not the other way around. This is why the 2-minute rule is so effective. You tell yourself you will only work on the task for 2 minutes, after which you have full permission to stop. Shrinking the goal to just 120 seconds lowers the emotional resistance. It tricks your brain into starting because 2 minutes feels manageable, even when the whole project feels impossible. There is a physics to productivity. Most effort is concentrated in this initial spike of friction. Break that static resistance, get the block moving, and it easily stays in motion. Washing one fork breaks the paralysis, and you naturally move to the next dish. Taking the smallest possible micro-step is the only way to override your brain's threat response and build the momentum you need to finish. Once you've started, you have to avoid the marathon trap. There is a common belief that successful students spend 6 uninterrupted hours at their desks, but long, intense sessions lead to cognitive habituation. Your brain literally stops paying attention because it's seen the same pattern for too long. You end up with an illusion of competence where you recognize the words, but the truth is you aren't actually retaining them. The Pomodoro technique solves this by breaking work into intense bursts of 25 to 50 minutes, focused on a single task. Following these bursts with 5 to 15-minute breaks is essential for neuroplasticity. During these pauses, your brain consolidates information and restores the cognitive energy needed for the next block. These focused intervals only work if you eliminate distractions. Every single time you check your phone, your brain pays a heavy context switching cost that can lower your effective learning efficiency by 40%. Structuring your day into intense, bounded intervals produces high-quality work in far less time than an unstructured afternoon of grinding. To make sure your hard work stays in your head, you have to use spaced practice. This is the biological process of moving information from fragile short-term memory into permanent storage. Without review, memory decays rapidly. Retrieving material at increasing intervals, today, in 3 days, and a week, resets retention, flattening the curve. Cramming creates a spike, but without sleep consolidation, information vanishes immediately after the test. Spaced practice is the academic version of daily dish maintenance. Doing small, consistent amounts of work prevents the buildup of a stressful, unmanageable mountain later. Mastery is not about the quantity of hours you spend suffering. It is about the quality and timing of your retrieval. By adopting these systems, your role changes. You move from being a reactive student driven by external pressure to a self-directed learner who chooses when and how work happens. This shift brings a massive sense of psychological relief. When you finish tasks early, you eliminate the chronic anxiety that usually clouds a student's personal life. In the end, the core analogy holds true. The homework is done, the environment is reset, and the sink is sparkling clean. Adopting this approach reclaims your time. You can finally enjoy rest and play without the nagging guilt that you should be doing something else. Mastering daily maintenance habits changes your academic results,
But more importantly, it replaces the stress of the overwhelming pile with a permanent sense of control over your own life.